Welcome to the channel. This is going to be a setup video for a new series to the channel called Conquest 1908. This is a series that I've been looking forward to doing for a very long time for reasons which I'll explain in a little while. But first, a few things I need to talk about. This video is just going to cover the initial game setup, changing the date on the map. There will be a section where I will give a brief overview of the map itself and lay out some of the game rules that we're going to be playing to, and then in the final section I'm just going to talk about the mods that we might be using and how I'm going to deal with the fact that some areas of the game I've got absolutely no idea how I'm actually going to do it with a 1908 start. So I want to emphasize there will be no actual gameplay in this video. This is more about introducing the game because I wanted to keep this self-contained. The other thing I will say is that if you want a more detailed overview of the map, will be a separate video published at the same time as this for you to be able to get a more greater in-depth feel for the custom map that I've actually created for this series. That map is actually called the same as the title of this series. It's called Conquest 1908, and it will be available in the Steam Workshop. So I think that very brief introduction, we might as well just jump straight in and talk about the custom game. And just to show you the map that we're actually doing, you can see this is the map, Conquest 1908 early start. You can see it's a populated map, so we'll just double click on that. Now, because we're going to be playing on realistic mode, there's no point putting any population in. If you're interested, I think I did a test, and if you play with the base game setting for population, I think you get a population of about just about 3,500. We're going to be playing on realistic mode with some customization. First thing is we're going to be playing with medium money for a reason I'll explain to when we get to the game rules. The other thing we're also going to be doing is playing with vehicles that are available from year that they are first manufactured and never expire. If you're starting in the 1900s, this is a very important parameter to set, simply because some of the modded vehicles that are available have very short lifespans. Some of them only have one like 2 years. And the trouble is that in some areas, the vehicle availability can be a little bit patchy. So what you need is every vehicle that's made in this early time period to be available from when they come there. Now, the actual date doesn't make any difference. We'll set it to 1960. And what I'm going to do now is just start the game, and I'll see you once we get onto the map. So here we are on the map. The first thing we're going to do is press pause. And just to show you, when we are starting on the 10th of May 1960, the reason for that is that this is on the map is created using the Siberian biome, which means that if you want to play this map, you must have the Biomes DLC. The reason it's May rather than March is the fact that if I backtrack this date back to a few days, what will happen is the snow will appear, or the period when your map is actually green was very much shorter. It runs from May to September. The rest of the year it's snow, which means then the temperature gets very, very cold. So the primary challenges of playing on the Siberian map as default is the very short growing season and the fact that in winter the temperatures get very, very cold. I think I watched a overview video for the Siberian biome, and I think they actually showed where the temperature could get down to about -50. So a big factor in this series is going to trying to come up with a way to grow at least some crops, and also making sure that our populations stay warm. And to be honest, at the moment I've got no idea about either of them. So, but the first thing we got to do is actually change the date. Now, there's two ways you can change the date. First, there's a small application you can put on your desktop made by Lex713, and what you do is you save the game, quit out, fire up this little application. You go to the save game, and you can change the year to any year that you want. Now, there is another way now, which I'm going to demonstrate. This is called Timer, and this is a mod created by Citizen. It's called Time Master. And what you do is come into here, find the settings scripts, and then what you do is you just move the date backwards. This is in decades, like that. So we're going to move it back to 1910. And then the next one across takes it back 1, 2 years. And then the next one across, you can move it for 30 days. So you can change the month if you want. You can move it back a week, or you can move it back a day, and then the rest of these moves it forward. So it means that if you've got this mod, you can move the date even when the game is active. What I will say though is be aware that you are not progressing the whole game. What you are doing is simply changing the date. So if you suddenly think, well, I don't want to winter, I want to skip forward, you're not skipping forward in actual gameplay. All you're doing is moving the date, and that can mess up your stats. So be aware that you don't really want to start tinkering around with the date unless for some reason. In fact, as the best example I can think of, and what I was going to do is start in 1917, play forward, and then come back to 1970. And that will make sense when I talk about the game rules. But what I've decided to do is not do that. Anyway, so we've now changed the date to the 10th of May 1908. And what I'm going to do now is drop a save game, simply because, as I've already mentioned, there's no actual gameplay in this. And I want to be able to come back onto this map. So, right, I've now got a save game, which means I can move forward with confidence. So the next thing I want to do is just give you a very brief overview of the map. Now, with respect to the starting areas. Now, there is a separate video which is associated with the map as published in the Steam Workshop, which gives a bit more detailed overview of all the features. In here, all I'm going to do is go over the general theme, which is obviously the base for the series, and then just talk more about the starting locations, because I need to explain the game rules in the context of those starting locations. So if you look at the mini-map here, if I can get it as big as possible, what you'll see is the map is split up into 3 zones. We've got a Soviet zone down in the bottom right-hand corner, which represents a province that goes off the map. At the top, we've got another Soviet zone, which is effectively an island. And then in between, we've got what was, by base game standards, is meant to be called NATO. Now, for the purposes of this series, and the reason we're starting in 1908 is what we've got is 3 areas of Siberia, or the remote north, which 2 of which have leanings towards the revolution, and the bit in the center is still supporters of the Imperial Tsar. And the scenario is that between 1908 and 1917, these rebellious Soviet republics will be building up their populations to a point where they're self-sustaining. The basic game rule would be, if I can come down to here, is that before 1917, there's only one reason to cross into the Imperial area. That is to purchase Imperial vehicles, or Western vehicles, whatever you want to say, from this custom shed. Because this is the only place where you, on the map to begin with, where you can get Western vehicles. So that's the initial constraint, that fact that for the first 9 years, you are constrained to the Soviet areas, because the idea is to make these into viable settlements. Now, I'm not going to reveal where the resources are on the map, but what I will tell you is that within the Soviet area, the only resources that are available are coal and iron, and that applies for both zones. All the other resources are inside of the Imperial area in the center, but there's also coal and iron in the Imperial area as well. Also, I can't even tell you whether the resources here are sparse or common. The reason for that is that because I wanted to be fair to you guys, I didn't put the resources on the map. My wife did, and I haven't looked at where those resources are. So I don't know how much she's painted in. I mean, she could have put literally a tiny little dot or a big pile of resources anywhere on the map, and therefore it's gonna make this series a little bit interesting. I mean, it could be incredibly difficult to find the resources because my wife isn't a game player. She's a graphics designer, and all she did was follow some very basic rules that I actually gave it to her. So we don't know what the resources are, and as I said, the outline is that we are, for the first 9 years, we've got to focus on building up our economy here. This leads into what I was saying about the fact that we're going to start with 4.7 million rubles. The reason for that is that from the get-go, we've got to get populations into this settlement, this settlement, which is also, these are the settlements that are close to a border connection. So we got to develop this settlement, which is close to this border settlement. This is going to be our capital. You can say this is going to be the capital of our Soviet Republic, and this, of course, we move it later on. And then if I come up to the island, there is another settlement here, which has got access to a border post here, hence the border coming in here with a port. So from the get-go, we've got to work on the development of 3 settlements in tandem. I thought it'd just make it a lot more interesting, because the normal game is you start focus on one settlement and expand outwards. The idea of this series is that we're going to start with 5 settlements, 3 of which will need to be developed from the very beginning, but hopefully by 1917 we will have a population in here and a small village down in the south of the map. Now, a supplementary rule to that process is that we need to maintain these buildings, which means that we've got about a 5-6 year period before the buildings start collapsing. Now, we can allow some collapses, but we're not allowed to abandon the whole village. So there is a driver to start trying and cracking on so that we can actually maintain these buildings. Now, one thing I will say, the reason this port is here is the fact that moving vehicles up this road during the winter, it will be very difficult. So the idea of this port is so that we can get some early shipping in here to move goods from here to here and possibly even import. And the reason they're actually medium is that if I come into this, not the harbour, the dock here, is the fact that if I come in here, if I click on, no, it's not that one. We've got to buy them with dollars. Sorry. I'm kind of giving away my relative inexperience now. The reason this is a medium dock is that the best early ships here are these flying P liners, which you can't get on a small dock. This is the reason why these are medium docks. But you can see this is the very limited supply of shipping, and there aren't actually any ships available from the Soviet side. So any shipping will have to depend on Western shipping. Now, another sub goal for the period between 1908 and 1917 is actually repairing this railway line, which will, if I do a quick flyover to the border. Now, the restriction on this line here is that before 1917, all you can do is fill the gaps in. You can't upgrade the track. So what you're going to have to do is fill in the gaps here. And also the only train that can run along this line is actually coal powered. So that's another kind of objective, because while I'm not going to strive for 100% historical accuracy, what I want to develop in this area is historical flavour, and that's why one of the rules are. So what we want to do is get this rail line operating, but also with coal, and of course, so we're going to have to build this. So I've got no idea about the track things. Now, once we get to 1917. We can then cross the border, and technically anything goes. There's 2 long-term objectives. One's a personal goal. That is, I would like to take this series right through 2008. So that means what we're going to have is 100 years of gameplay. So that what we'll be able to do is develop, show the changing cultures. So we'd have a historical area here, and also that would then lead into the fact that we can possibly use every building in the game, including the vanilla buildings. And a key element of that kind of overall gameplay is to connect up the various points with the railway. And for that reason, if I come to here, there are some pre-built bridges here to facilitate being able to cross this river. So the idea is to run a rail line from the bottom left-hand corner up through here to service these villages at the top. There's also a NATO connection down in the, or Western connection down in the bottom left-hand corner, and then the ultimate prize is to actually connect up this customs shed. Oops, I'm not in the right place. Although we may have to do it with a local ferry. I'm not exactly sure how that is. So that is the kind of general rules that I'm going to be playing to. Although I will say that I'm not going to set them in concrete. because the next section is going to might expose a few weaknesses. That is mods. Now, I did do an early start series a couple of years ago, but we've had a lot of mechanics that have been added. To be honest, there are a couple of areas like vehicle maintenance and waste collection, which, to be honest, I haven't got a clue what mods are available. So a feature of this series, especially during this initial build-up period, is that occasionally what I might have to do is when I've got a mod, I may need to test it. So what I'm going to have is a test game, and what this test game will have is basic settings, a great big pile of money. So what we can do is check mods to see how they actually work, because of course if we're building up with very slow vehicles, we need to build the right things from the get-go. I mean, I don't mind making mistakes, but I don't really want to take educated guesses. And one of those key areas is sanitation as well, because this has been a bit of a difficult decision for me, because I did consider running a very basic sanitation, but with the slow speed of the vehicles, I thought no. So with sanitation, we are going to provide proper drainage in the form of the base game mechanics. So we are going to have to build underground sewer pipes, whether we like it or not, which means we're going to have to import prefabs, and that will also apply to the water supply as well. That we're going to put a proper water supply. I mean, it's 1908. I think even in the cold north of Siberia, that people would have a proper sanitation system. Although technically it could freeze solid, isn't it? Kind of thing. Now, obviously, the mods is going to be a little bit of a rabbit hole. But there's one thing I do want to do before I forget, and that is if we come to the substation, I'm going to put a substation there. I will connect it up with Mud Road, but I'm not actually going to build it. The reason for this is that another area where I know I might cause some controversy is that we're in a period where we're going to have horse-drawn vehicles, steam vehicles, and of course normal vehicles with diesel. The one thing that's also worth mentioning is that one of the game rules for this track is that before 1917, if I want to use the railway, we've got to run it on coal. Also, no upgrading the tracks with concrete. It's got to be the what they call it, wood-based track. So what this line prior to 1917, if we bring it into use, will have to be on wood-based tracks using coal. And that means we're going to use steam trains, which could be a little bit of a challenge, because I'm not sure if we got a steam train available here. Of course, it would be under diesel locomotives. Then we got one steam train. Back to the fuel situation. Now, if I show you these mods here, go to I think it's gas stations. What we've got is a what's this? This is a Pioneer gravity feeder. But the problem with these is I don't know whether they all need power. So what you're going to find me doing is things like this. In fact, it's quite surprising here, but this is a free steam fueler. Actually, is this actually working? Let me just check. Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Let me just check this. I've got to do it again, guys. Let me see. Horse feeding yard. Feeding station. Well, that's good to know, because one thing I was going to talk about next is power. And I'm pretty sure that originally these needed power. And then, of course, that leads on to the last section of mods that I'm going to talk about in this video. That is a power itself, because I would have wanted to use the wind turbines, but of course wind turbines are locked behind technology. So at the moment, I'm kind of thinking water or diesel generators, because I'm not sure about building a coal-fired power station, because I don't think I've got any that actually fit well with the overall thing. So at the moment, I'm probably going to lean towards putting in this hydro water plant if I can build it. That's just in here. I'm not going to place it because I said there would be no gameplay. So we're probably going to need to go for hydroelectric power. There is this This is a diesel generator, which we could possibly use. So we got this old 1930s power plant, which we could bring in later on. Anyway, those decisions are going to be for the next part. So probably the best way to wind this video up is to say that when we first start out, things could be a little bit sketchy. Apologize if I have to bend the rules occasionally to fit in with the various mechanics. And one example of that is vehicle maintenance. I've got absolutely no idea how I'm going to be able to do vehicle maintenance at this time period. In fact, I don't even know what buildings they are. The only ones we got at the moment are the actual vanilla game, and to be honest, I'm not even overly sure whether that such buildings exist. So we may have to use these modern looking repair stations, and also for the ships as well. But I'm starting to go down the rabbit hole. This is where I'm going to leave it. Official part 1, where we're going to do some work, should be out at roughly the same time as this video. So until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.